Another one. Part 2 of What's in a Name. I can sense approaching storms, and sometimes I would warn ship captains and the harbor master if the storm was going to be particularly strong or long. And my warnings were often a dramatic performance. Smoke messages, sleight of hand, sound effects. Often I would conjure illusions of a murder of storm crows circling the harbor a few times before vanishing. I would sign such messages as Storm Crow. Eventually, someone caught on that it was me, and the nickname stuck. I was considered an acolyte of a fairy, the Weather Weaver, but I don't believe anyone ever learned my connection to her. Eventually, I was asked to watch the Moonlight Grove cross-rays into the fairy wildlands in space, and there I would warn the farmers of hailstorms in summer and blizzards in the winter. But my parentage wasn't a secret there, and the name fades in and out of use, usually by prospective students or a recent Fae arrival trying to impress me with their research or rumor-mongering skills. I said, finishing my summary. There's always a Mudfoot who remembers, and of course, the local fairies don't forget. So, the name was a fitting gift for the scion and herald of the Weather Weaver called the Storm Chaser. Between your propensity for running into storms and the fact that over the last few decades, your arrival often signals the imminent approach of a geopolitical tempest, it turns out that you embody your name in more ways than one. The Sovereign of Corvids observed. A moment of pride surged through me. Acknowledgement from a prominent power that I embodied my name was an accomplishment, and it was accompanied by an immutable infusion of weird. But my pride was short-lived and promptly replaced with suspicion because the Sovereign of Corvids was not known for flattery. And twice now, she had bestowed to me prestige that increased my own power without making a request beforehand. What message do you bring me from Vafari, the Weather Weaver? I apologize, Your Majesty, but I am not here to deliver a message. Then why are you here, Stormcrow? I am here at the request of another. And what is the nature of this request? An associate of mine mentioned the area may have been burned using the Lithit's firebomb, but was under the impression we remediated this area and asked me to look. And who is this associate? Someone who wishes to remain anonymous and was wise enough to bind me to secrecy. That is unfortunate for you. If you are not here as herald, then you are trespassing in my domain, Archfey. This area is still alive and thus part of Material Prime. Is it? Yes, Your Majesty. I can sense the plants and animals clinging to life. For emphasis, I gestured to a nest of quail hatchlings underneath a dying bush. The Morgan looked around. It was true that life still lingered in this part of the forest, but it was a formality. Soon everything here would die or flee, and it was obvious by the aura of desolation that she had every intention of absorbing this section of Galamark forest for her own domain in the Shadow Barrens. So it is, the Morgan conceded, but not for much longer. Why not? Perhaps another arrangement could be negotiated for the life that remains. I suggested service or objects of value. An Archfey's ability to charm others to listen to a prospective deal seeped out of me and enveloped the Sovereign of Corvids. Until now, I was unaware of the fact that not even a god was immune to the effects of weird. However, the Morgan's status as a divine power alerted her to its effects, as weird encroached upon her subconscious. Still your silver tongue, lest you lose it, the Morgan said abruptly. I beg your pardon, Your Majesty, and offer my sincere apology. I momentarily bent to one knee in a gesture meant to underscore my sincerity. The manifestation of my ability to charm others was a subconscious act and not an intentional attempt to placate her for my offensive trespassing. Indeed, I was not sorry for coming here. Although in later years I would occasionally second-guess what I am about to do. I came with the intention of examining the damage to the area and negotiate for or defend the life of the dying woods had it been some other entity responsible. Why would my intentions change just because I encountered the Phantom Queen? She looked me over once more in an obvious gesture that she was appraising my worth. An escalation of warfare looms on the horizon of Everin, and in order to perform my divine charge, I must expand my tenurial holdings. I will not relinquish my full and rightful claim on this area, but you and your suggestion both have merit. I will accept your offer of service. Archfey Elegasarin Anara Dotil Volferin the Stormcrow. At the spoken invocation of the fragment of my true name, a sheet of frost erupted from the ground underneath the sovereign of Corvids and expanded until it encompassed me as well. "Is that your doing, Archfey?" she inquired in a casual tone. This was not the first time I had seen this, but I nodded to confirm her assumption. Technically, she initiated the binding rite, but since it draws from my own weird essence, it is partially of my own making. It was a weird evocation intended to seal an agreement, and when the Phantom Queen initiated it, I gained a few fragments of insight, as did she in return. The first is that Morgan's birth name was Morgan Le Fay. If she didn't know my birth name was Anira when I first introduced myself to her, she certainly does now. The second is that the Morgan's greatest desire in this instant is to be worshipped as a deity of war once again. I, on the other hand, have aspirations of being recognized as someone who can trade esoteric secrets and powers. The last, and what will be of utmost importance to me later, is that while the Sovereign of Corvids is a powerful wizard and on par with some of the oldest divinities that claim worshippers in Everin, she knew very little about weird, and she needed someone knowledgeable about it, whereas I needed to expand my ability to use other sources of eldritch power. This section of Galamark Forest will remain part of the Prime, but will become a threshold to enter my realm. In exchange, you will serve for a time as my harbinger, and to bring those you are directed to escort into the afterlife to me through this threshold. She reached over and took hold of my chin with her right hand and tilted my head up to look in her eyes. I shuddered as her fingers brushed my jawline, and when I met her crimson stare, her melancholic aura enveloped me, and I felt a pang of anxiety. I prefer the cold of winter, the quiet of darkness, watching the unknown, and the thrill of fear, which is why I was drawn to favor the winter and unseelie courts. But fear quickly transformed into a burdensome weight of existential inevitability, a numbing sensation that constricted my body. I drew what may be my final breath of air, slumped to my knees, and fell into the unconscious void.